All right, welcome back to Case Studies. So Nick Greer, I've known you for a while, but I haven't known you like I've known you the last 3 days because I got to go spend some time.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, it's so funny because you'll spend time with people and you'll kind of know them on like a casual level or like a kind of less personal level, and then you go spend time and you just hear their stories and it just changes things. And I've always admired you from a distance. I've always kind of watched your career and just admired the companies that you built and kind of how you've gone, just about your profession and your life and your family and, you know, all those things. But it was fun to spend a couple of days playing golf with you and competing and doing those things. And
well, I felt the same thing.
Anyway,
we should flip the pistol, I think, today, and I should interview you.
Maybe we
I
should.
think that's what it should be. Because
I
don't know, when you got vulnerable like that and you were starting to tell us who you really are.
Yeah.
I think when you start getting below the surface of individuals, it's amazing to see how real they become.
It's the good stuff.
Yeah. And those dots that start connecting, and then emotionally you start realizing, all right, how can I help love and serve this individual better? What can we do together in ways to make an impact? And
no, for sure.
I love that. I love when you were starting to tell those stories of your family, yourself, and everything else. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So I want to go like back to the very beginning. So like where did it all begin? Because like starting at the end, your CEO of Built Bar, you know, we're like here in the office talking about some new products some new lines that you have coming out. They're like really exciting, you know, 100 million plus revenue company. Like, but this is kind of the tail end of a lot of entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
Like you've done it multiple times. Going back to like, where did it all start? Arizona.
Yeah.
Grew up in Arizona. Like,
yeah, where did it start?
Yeah, well-to-do family. Like, was it kind of like you always had like these foundations? Like, how do you just decide I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's my dad who was always instilling ideas into my head. Hey, we should try this. We should try that. We should try grow boxes for gardens. Hey, Nick, what about baseball cards? Let's go buy baseball cards and you can sell them. I mean, it was a constant.
So it was a family. It
was my dad. It was definitely my dad. But when we lost everything when I was 11 years old, I mean, everything, where we had everything.
So like what year is this? Like what's going on from a macroeconomic standpoint?
So 87.
Okay.
88.
Like in the stock market, is it black?
All real estate.
Yeah.
All real estate, stock market my dad was in. And, you know, I didn't realize at the time what he was going through.
Yeah.
And the man that he was and the aspect of what he had to endure. You know, most men at that point in their lives would give up and give in, and he kept fighting. And
so give me some context with it. Like, so you guys had like,
listen,
you had a life that was.
I mean, if to put in perspective, I mean, this sounds lame in a lot of words, but in a lot of ways, I should say, he had the first convertible Jaguar in Arizona. So he had one of the very first cell phones. It was a rotary phone that only doctors got. And I remember he would have that little rotary phone in your car that he paid $5,000 for. I remember I'm like, whoa. But then it's like those big old bricks that we all make fun of. But just the house, the boats, the cars, the everything. And
so he was like an innovator. He
was one day gone. All of it. I mean, all of it. I remember my mom cutting up 20 plus credit cards, bawling. And I had no idea what was going on. And there she was just crying. And my dad and mom said, kids, we need to gather. And one of the things they said to us was no more allowance. I was getting $35 a week as an 11-year-old kid. My sisters were getting $50, I think it was, a week for doing our chores. And that was a significant amount back then.
Yeah.
And for just allowance. And then they would buy everything else and it was gone. And then our house, months later, gone. And then I remember that first Thanksgiving where my dad wasn't there. And I'm like, where's Dad, Mom? He's out selling. What's he selling? He's selling fire alarms. And I'm not talking home security fire alarms. I'm talking like fire alarms in someone's home, trying to sell door to door during the Thanksgiving weekend. Just a superstar. And I had no idea what that meant at the time, nor could I appreciate it.
Where did you fall as far as kids? Like,
I was the fourth of six.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
you
first
were younger.
First son. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
No, that's like stuff that you can't unexperience.
No.
Like, especially at that age.
No, especially then throughout those years, my dad 3 different times came to me and borrowed money from me as a kid. And that was huge to be able to borrow money. And then I remember it took it was always about, okay, what lawn mowing business could I start? I mean, even driving an old Datsun truck illegally, I don't know. I don't think they can arrest me now, but I'm 14 years old, driving, mowing lawns, getting 2 little 2x4s to get the lawnmower in the back of the old Datsun truck, taking the stickers off the back of my mom's license plate because the Datsun was expired. So I take her stickers off to put the right year
on the truck
when I drive over to my different houses. And I drive that little stick shift over.
But was it just intuitive? Was it out of desperation, or was it out of like motivation? Was it like,
I would say yes.
Both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
Wow,
I mean, it was great because I
look
back and I realized, man, that's why I love to pay cash for everything. That's why I still like to carry cash with me. But that's why I want to make sure it's like we always have that disposable.
Reserves.
Yeah, reserve.
Yeah, reserves.
Do not put me in a position where I'm leveraged or desperate.
Yeah.
Ever.
And we were talking about your son, like today, and buying cars, and going through these same struggles of like, I've got a car and I've got this arbitrage between buying it here and then taking it to bring your trailer and doing better marketing. Yeah. And you let him struggle.
Could you hear that on the phone?
No, I love it. Like I was listening to it and I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about, I remember reading this book, and it was Elder Eyring. And he was talking about this experience with his mom. And he was out in the garden and he was crying because he's doing this weeding and he can't get the roots out, and he's crying and he's so frustrated that his mom would make him do this hard work. And he said, I didn't know it then, but I know it now that, my mom was probably smiling, even though it was so hard and so frustrating, because she knew what was coming in life.
Yeah.
And she wasn't going to rob me of that muscle.
Right.
That I had to go develop. And I saw that the other day with your son, where you're like, I'm not going to rob him of the muscle and the stress, and like to be able to like carry that burden of, hey, how do I pay for these 2 cars?
Right.
Now I'm getting 2 cars, and like, and the creativity of saying, I got to go bridge the gap. I don't have enough money. How do I go? And I think the natural thing as a parent is you just want to fix it. You want to rescue it because and you don't want to see him in pain.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. I'm truly fascinated to see, like, 1, how do people get taught that? And then 2, how do you teach it? How do you not screw up your kids?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is that a question? Because
no, I'm still like, I'm asking the question for myself.
I'm still trying to read that book and figure it out.
But it was something that I admired. I saw you do that and I was like, oh, I love that. I'm going to like take notes of, you're there, you're a support, you're a resource, but you're letting them struggle and you're letting them feel the heat.
It's tough because as parents, naturally our innate, characteristics are those to rescue, to come save, to help, to put the Band-Aid on quickly.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's like, okay, you got the scrape. Now what? I'm here to help. I'm here to love, but I'm not here to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think I've learned earlier on with my kids, and I was grateful for it, where because of my experience as a young boy myself going through these experiences, my dad always taught me that as far as, okay, now what? Okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what? And so asking my kids the same questions.
Your dad, he was a great man.
Oh, he is a great man.
It sounds like he's like hero of yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Still alive?
Absolutely.
And still doing good?
He's doing great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So there was times, where he went from top of the top to literally doing whatever it would take to kind of take care of the family, but you just like figured it out. You just said, I'm going to go start doing lawn mowing businesses. How did it go from that to, like, when was the first time where you said, like, I have something that has real substance?
So it was early on here in Utah. I was just married, just graduated from BYU. And I had $2,000 in the bank and 2 little kids. And I had a business that failed with a partner. And I remember calling my dad, and I had this old 1974 GMC cherry red Suburban. The front license plate said Bad Girl on it. So I still have that license plate today. And so it's the Bad Girl. And like I bought it off my dad for $10. And so that's how I was able to buy the first car when we were married, and we ended up buying a little other car. But I'm driving the Bad Girl, and I'm taking the couple desk and chairs that belonged to me from this business that failed. And I called my pops. I'm like, Dad, I'm there right here on 1600 North, right off the freeway at that gas station. And he's like, Nick, what are you going to do? I'm like, Dad, I got to go rent an office, but I think I'm going to work from home. And I've got this little business, lead generation, that I want to do for Ancestry.com. And I want to help them out, and I can make some money. He goes, Nick, go get the office. I'm all, Dad, I'll have $500 left. I got to pay the first month and the last month, $750 each. So $1,500. I'll have $500 left in my own account. And he goes, go buy and go rent that office. Why? Start acting like a business. And he goes, and you go work for that business and you become an employee of that business. So I did that, and I paid myself the very first month $500. So I actually wrote the check for $500. We actually got down to $126 in that bank account. My wife never said anything once, but it was that was a pivotal moment where I realized I just got to go. I got to go all in. And I've done it before. I had practice before.
Yeah.
But not at this capacity.
Because you had the muscle. Like you knew that you could create for yourself. You'd always kind of created along the way.
Well, I think that muscle, I mean, Casey, you understand this as you work out physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You know darn well, the more you do it, the more you become accustomed to it, the more natural it comes to you. I
think about my life, and I think about door-to-door sales.
Yeah.
It was like the greatest gift from God, because I have this confidence where I don't want to say I'm fearless, but I definitely don't fear ever not being able to take care of my family, because I know I have this muscle.
Wow.
I know I got this skill set.
How did you feel the very first door you knocked?
Terrified.
Yeah.
You know, and it like.
Do you still think about that time?
It was traumatic, but it was beautiful traumatic. It was a desperation. Like I still remember making the decision. My buddy had made 50,000 the summer before, and I'd never made 5,000. And so I'm like, if I could,
Cash Valley boy.
Yeah, if I could do that, I would run through a wall.
Wow.
And it all sounded awesome at PF Chang's. It was like, you have this.
Was that the sales pitch?
Yeah, you have this pay scale, and it's up and to the right, and I'm going to be here. And it literally, it all kind of made sense. And it really hit me. I was driving alone in my Toyota 4Runner. And I had just got engaged with my wife.
So it always comes down to the car. We remember what car
it
we're
really
driving,
was.
right?
Yeah. And it was like, I got this car, and I had got engaged right before, because I'm like, I don't want to go out for summer, like not be engaged. She's going to like, I got to snatch this up. Like, she's like, I'm punching way above my weight right now. I got to go close. And I was not smart enough to realize you could like take a loan out for a ring. Everything was cash. And I had like $300. So I'm like, 150 for the ring. So it's like tiny diamond, like pull out a mat. They told me it was a diamond, and had 150 for gas. And I still remember driving out there, and I'm driving past these cornfields through Nebraska, getting to Iowa. And that was the first time where I'm like this pit where I'm like, oh, I haven't fully thought this through. And like, I'm flying without a net right now. Like, there's no plan B. And I still remember like how hard it was. And then it was like it switched, and I got this confidence. And by the end of it, it's one of the most proud moments I've ever had in my life. I was driving home, and I just had like this intrinsic sense of pride, and also like confidence that if anything ever gets bad, I can go make 50 grand for my family.
Yeah.
And that served me so well in life. And, and so I think about you going all in and just realizing like, I can do this. Like, yeah, I'm scared, but I can do this.
When you say in that situation, like success is a cure-all. And so that very first sale, that very first door that you finally sold, contract signed, you're like, I got to go sprint to the next door. And then the faster you're sprinting, the harder you're working, the more success you see, you start having these building blocks of success. And you're realizing like anything's possible if I could put my mind to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guarantee the very first this summer, that very first month was brutal.
Yep.
And then, you know, come June hits, you start seeing a little more success.
The highs weren't as high.
Yeah.
Like when I'd go have a big day, it wasn't as euphoric.
Yeah.
But the valleys
weren't
as low. Like I remember that first summer, it was the first time where I was like, I'm not a depressed person. I'm actually like a really happy person, but I'm just down right now. And I like the swings of emotions. I just wasn't in emotional shape, and it got me in shape. And by the end of it, I look back now and it's 21 years later and I'm like, you could do anything to me. Like you could say anything. I'm kind of like, I don't want to say scarred, but definitely like calloused.
Yeah, calloused.
You know, battle tested maybe.
I managed an office years ago, and I'm sitting there for pest control for at the time Apex. And
I didn't know you worked for Apex. That's incredible.
Yeah, Truly Nolan. We did a whole pest control back in the day. I was in Phoenix, just newly married. So similar situation where you're newly engaged. I'm newly married. And I had this guy on our team who was married, one of the older guys, and he's on the corner, and he calls me up on the little Nextel phone, if you remember those little walkie-talkie. He's, please come out here. I need help now. And he was in the deepest, darkest pit. And I drive about a half hour out there in the middle of the desert, and I pull up. There he is on the corner, and he is in tears, crying, broken. And I put my arm around him, and I wrapped my arm. We just sat there and we sobbed together on the corner, and didn't have to say anything. Just had to show him like, I got your back, bro. Yeah. I got your back. And all he needed that time was like, you know what? Someone believes in me because I don't believe in myself right now, and I don't believe I can be successful. And that was a crazy cool moment for me to watch how just this reinforcement of an individual of who he is and his capacity and his capability and his potential, and wrapping my arm around him. I'm like, all right, Jared, let's go. It's go time. And he got back up and he dominated the rest of that summer. But here he was telling me, I'm gone. I'm tapped out. I'm leaving. Control, Alt, Delete. Take me out of here.
So I just interviewed Casey Adams.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his mission. And he was talking about he was just in a bad spot. Sideways with his mission president, going home. And he had a kid that he went to high school with, or like grew up in his home ward, that was somehow in his mission, that went and talked to the mission president about being his companion. And they approved it.
Wow.
And he was like, he came in and he just said, hey, are you out the door? Are you like close? And he just kind of revived him, and it changed his life. And I think all of us, when I get fired up, I think about, you know, who's the person that believed in you more than you believed in yourself at that crossroads when you could have gone either way. And those people are the gifts from God, man. Yeah. Those are the angels that are like, and all of us, you know, to be that person is like as close to divine, I think, as you can get.
Yeah.
But also all of us have received it too. And, you know, I go back and I think about 2 or 3. Todd Peterson is one of those that I was at a low spot. And he just believed in me so much that I was like, well, if he thinks I can do it, and then I didn't want to let him down. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, believes in me that much. I'm like, I will not fail this guy. Anyway, that's such a cool story. Like that's the gold. That's like the really good stuff.
Yeah. But you know what? The great thing about Todd, that's who he is. And it's not just for you.
It's all day, every day.
Thousands of different people. I mean, it's just because he believes in himself, and therefore he can believe in others. And he's one of the best.
He's one of one. He's a
for sure.
special guy. Yeah. So we're $500.
Yeah.
Then what?
It was go time.
And did it just go?
It was awesome. I mean, it was great.
Was it game on?
It was game on. And we was like, let's just do whatever we can. And so 8.5 years, built that business. And that was what we were able to sell off.
Started when you were what?
How old?
Yeah.
It was 2002. So I was 25.
Okay. So 25.
26. Yeah. I'm 47 now.
Done with school.
Yeah.
kind of all in on a business, and you sold that business for a real number, didn't
It was
you?
good.
Yeah.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good day.
And sold to who?
So 2 private equity groups came in, one of which was Dan Gilbert, Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
If we remember the whole LeBron situation. So he owns Quicken Loans, which is now Rocket Mortgage. So he was my partner and he bought the business. And then, yeah, that was back in 2010.
So, but how did you like process? Was it right back onto the next thing? Was it?
Well, I don't think it ever ends. I think it's a matter of just, there's a reinvention of yourself constantly. And I think in any time of your life, if you're not inventing or reinventing who you are, therefore improving who you are, then I think you're missing out on the opportunity of becoming who you ought to be. And, I realized that 2 weeks into being completely gone and done, where I was golfing and thought that was life and going out to lunches with everyone. And I realized this is lame.
It wasn't,
and
fulfilling.
I'm not reaching my potential of my capacity of who I am. And so it wasn't fulfilling at all. So it was at that moment where it was like, all right, I gotta re-engage and I gotta go after this. And that's,
how long did it take you to like say, I gotta go build another one?
I never thought I was going to build other ones. I mean, that's where I was teaching at BYU, class that you teach. And we had a family office. It was like, great, we're having fun building projects. But then it just naturally, you invest. I mean, I think we invested in 26 different businesses at the time. And I'm like, this is fun. This is great. But it's not active. And I needed to be in the business.
It's different, huh?
And someone told me, I heard it once and then I've heard it multiple times since. It's like, you do it once, and it's like, and you're lucky. You do it twice, you know what? It's like, it takes talent, and it's rare for anyone to do it twice.
To see people that can do it multiple times, you're like, it's almost like a coach that goes to one program and wins, then goes to the other. And you're like, it's the coach. Like it's.
And I would definitely say it's not the coach in this situation at all. It's the players. It's the people I've surrounded myself with.
But it's for sure the coach. Like it's leadership starts at the top. It's an internal job.
Yeah.
And then you got to put the team together and you got to build the vision and.
You do. You do. You definitely do. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's like you build that vision and you get better with time of building out the vision, right?
When you get better at building teams too. And like,
yes,
this is what I found. Like you attract what you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when you're 25, you're attracting, 25-year-olds. You're attracting like people that are in it. But you're 32, 33, you've done it before. And you start attracting like real talent,
Success breeds success.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And that's, and you've seen that in your career, in your life, and what's taken off for you.
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
And we search for those repeat founders. Those are like unicorns.
Yeah.
It's like, if we can have a chance to invest in a repeat founder, like that is the sweet spot for us, because it is so hard to do it. And if somebody has those reps and has made all those experiences and that scar tissue and they get it started again with a fresh slate, it's pretty good formula.
Yeah, I know, but just don't invest in anyone that does chocolate. I mean, that's like crazy. That's crazy house stuff. But no, we've been fortunate. We've been totally blessed, and it's.
But so you did because you've done a bunch of them. You had that texting company, Scipio.
Yeah.
Had Scipio.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a number of them. How did it end up on Built? How did it say like I'm going all in on this?
It was day one of the product. When you taste the product, you experience it. You know, and you talk about practice. That as far as that muscle memory or that muscle practice, and that weight training you go on within your brain, your mind.
For sure.
It's no different with ideation and with experimentation.
But it's different for sure. Like you're doing manufacturing. You're like,
that's insanity. That's pure
what I'm
insanity
talking about.
And little stupidity. Have you ever been by to our facility?
No, but I've heard it's insane.
Okay. So you need to come by. And when people come, they realize, wait, you're not just this little cute little American fork company and you're making your bars back, in the Middle East somewhere. It's like, no, we manufacture everything here. And it was complete stupidity. Not stupidity. That's not the right word. That's unfair. It was out of desperation because no one could make our product. We tried 22 different co-manufacturers.
No one could do it.
They're like, it's impossible. It's too sticky. You can't make it happen. It's not going to work. And so we were making 80,000 bars a day by hand. You know what? I mean, really what we were trying to do is, I mean, we created this assembly line, Henry Ford-esque, where you're just like 80,000 bars, making that, making those bars by hand. It was a bear. And then you get your first part of your production line. And then you're like, okay, we're big time. All I need is one line. And we're going to the moon. And then now, like, we just bought a line that will make 26 million bars a month. Just the one line alone. And it's taken us 2.5 years to actually get it, but we're getting better. We're getting smarter. And we want to make more than just bars. And so it's been a wild ride.
I think about capabilities. Have you read the new Elon Musk book?
Which, no, I haven't.
It's incredible.
Okay.
But he just takes these things that you shouldn't take in-house, and he takes them in-house.
Yeah, we've seen that a little bit this last year, right?
But they end up getting this muscle, this engineering muscle, and all of a sudden it becomes like this superpower.
Yeah.
Where now they're like, they can do things no one else can do because stuff you can't outsource,
Right.
They take design in-house and they take the manufacturing in-house and then the batteries in-house. And it's like almost like the opposite of what they teach you in a business school to go do. But I see those similarities in yours where I'm like, you went and made your money in a way different business.
Totally.
But then you like are coming into like this like hardcore manufacturing, it's really impressive. Like honestly, it's like,
no joke. And not to sound cliche, it truly is the team. And you find the very best, you hire the very best, you partner with the very best, and they perform the very best. It's not rocket science. And building a business, it's not rocket science.
So I sent you a book today.
Yes.
That this is for sure my favorite book of the last decade.
Can't wait to read it.
Gone through it so many times. But it's this guy, Tom Peters, The Excellence Dividend, and his whole story. He Stanford doctorate, worked at McKinsey, kind of late 70s, early 80s. And they did this project on excellence. And he kind of got tasked with Bob Waterman. He was one of the senior guys at McKinsey to go study the best companies in the world and they came up with this thesis on excellence called In Search of Excellence, one of the most famous books in the early 80s. And since then, he's been a business consultant. So 30 years later, In Search of Excellence is his summary. And It's just the gold. But he's a big time Peter Drucker fan.
Yeah.
And he talks about Peter Drucker, and Peter Drucker said, business is innovation and marketing. And when I see what you do at Built, you're exceptional at innovating, taking ideas and tweaking them. And, the product that you brought over today, it is a combination of protein and caffeine and chocolate milk and like stuff that has never been brought together before. It's taken these ingredients. I was talking to Dave about you coming in today, and he's like, I eat a Built bar a day for sure. He's like, I think they're healthy. I feel like they're healthy, but I feel better eating them.
Go ahead and tell them after this. Yeah, they are.
But the piece that I think you're really good at is marketing, of telling your story. And I've seen you do it in unique ways, between NIL and between how you position it. And it's just, has that always been something that you've been good at, is telling the story of the company and kind of...
Listen, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. It's funny. My first thought that comes to my mind is like, man, we're so far from where we need to be and where I want us to be. And the storytelling aspect of anything is always fun. When you believe in something, it's easy to tell a story in something. You talk about the story of, as far as your door-to-door experience, that story has become part of who you are.
Yeah, it's a legend. They become, these cultural things that define you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so all you have to do is you bring that out into any product, any service, any business that you have, and you become that master storyteller, and you allow others to come around and help expand that story.
Yeah.
And when they can expand that story, then it's like game on. And the way that you can market and then sell that product or service or that business, whatever it may be, becomes very raw. It becomes very natural. It becomes very organic for any end user to look at and say, dude, I just feel that. I'm part of that. And so I don't know. For us, it's just a matter of we've got to do a lot better. We'll continue to do better. And we're just starting.
It feels like you're in like inning number 2.
Say that again.
Inning number 2, like really early.
Yes.
Like it feels like that flywheel is just starting to move. We were out at Grove 23.
Yeah.
And there's like these really good comfort stations.
Yes.
And I'm with you and you're like, we need to get Built bars here. And they
actually had them there for a year. Yeah. And then I didn't see him out there anymore because I was shipping it out to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, that's the mental lens that you're seeing. I'm seeing,
small little
just
shop
this
like
course,
that. Yeah.
and I'm seeing the hats, and you're like, I'm going to position something.
We were down in St. George and our bars just got there in Costco. And I'm like, guys, can we just stop by real fast before we got the plane out? And like, sure. And man, I went and bought a bunch of boxes. I just start handing them out to people walking in. And that very next month, they had record sales.
They go off.
And it wasn't because of that night, but it's funny. The guys we were with, I was telling them about it, and they're like, "Dude, what?" I'm like, "Yeah, look what they're doing per week now." And it's fun because when you believe in something, you love it, but you also know how it's going to make someone feel.
Of course,
you want to just share it. It's not a matter I'm trying to sell you anything.
No, you become an evangelist.
I just want them to love it.
But I think that's in that book that I shared with you. He talks about these iconic leaders, the Richard Bransons and the Steve Jobs and the, what's that guy? Herb Keller from Southwest. And these guys are evangelists. Like they are the chief evangelist often. Like there's no one that believes more in their company and no one that like paints the vision and tells the story than these guys. And I think about like that characteristic as an entrepreneur, and you're just, you're living it right now, and you've lived it for a long time, and it's fun to capture. It's fun to really dig in and say, okay, what are, if you were to go back and talk to Nick Greer at 21, like what advice would you give to yourself now with 25 years of mistakes and successes also? But like what would you tell yourself if you could go back?
Wow. I love that question. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, Nick, you can't move fast enough, so get moving.
So
go. And I think too often we have fear. I think all of us as human beings, one of the greatest, tragedies that we have in the whole human race is our ability to forget and to have fear. And we forget too often. We're so fearful of moving, of going, of partaking, of making things happen. And it's just, for me, like I would love for people to actually go and do much more than what they do, because I think they sit and watch instead of going and doing, if that makes any sense.
Of course.
And
no, it makes complete sense.
For me, it's just like, it's attack mode, and it's attack mode I'm getting smarter on how I attack. Go doesn't mean
to be more strategic on,
very much.
Yeah. More
intentional and strategic,
deliberate,
and very deliberate on what you're doing and how you can have the greatest impact, and then just do it. And so I study a lot more in the mornings. I slow down a lot more than I've ever done before, a ton more every single day. Why? Because I want to move a lot faster. Yeah. And when I move, I want to move in a wise, very thoughtful, strategic way.
To be tactical and be deliberate and actually spend your time. That's another one of those kind of Peter Drucker things that just, I can't unhear it, where he says the effective executives, they feed opportunities and they starve problems.
Yes.
And you think about your business and how the problems just creep up. They're just always, they could kind of consume all of your time if you let it. And so it's being disciplined to say, how do I keep these in a little box and deal with them when I have to deal with them, but spend real time and real energy on opportunity?
Absolutely. Is it bad to say that I'd rather hire people to go deal with the problems? Go let them work on the problems. Great. and you have complete trust in their ability to go solve those problems. You go focus on the opportunities. You go focus on what's biggest and what can bring the biggest impact into your business. But I think too often we feel wanted and needed when we focus on the problems.
No, I think if you're not careful, you become addicted.
Yeah.
Because it's actually like kind of satisfying to solve a problem, like to step in and solve it. And you get this, you feel needed. I still remember when I finished up at Vivint, it happened pretty quick. I had a conversation with Todd and Alex, and they kind of just told me, they said, hey, we're going public and we're going to make a lot of changes. You're not going to like any of them. How do we transition this? And we transitioned it, put a little plan together, but it happened in like 2 or 3 days. So I had a career of 15 years that was kind of done
within
days. 2 or 3 days. Wow. And it was super good. Like those guys are, when I think about my totem pole of my heroes, those are 2 of my heroes. But I remember my phone stopped ringing. And in the short term, I was kind of needed those problems to solve. Wow. And it was really insightful for me to realize they don't need me. They need somebody that can solve that problem. Wow. And now that I don't have the authority or the ability to solve it, they're not calling me. But that's kind of good.
It's way good.
You know what I mean? And I think I was addicted to those problems for a long time. You're just used to being in tactical mode and productivity mode and, being the one that can say yes and get it done. But stepping back and doing less with your time, and more ideation, more brainstorming, more really saying, hey, this is the one that could move the needle for us.
Right.
That's where you're going to see those quantum leaps in your company and the companies you lead.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about faith and talk to me about how that has impacted decision-making over the years, and even bringing it into business, and how that lens or that, philosophy has impacted how you think about the world, how you think about people.
Yeah. Faith is everything. And I think for me, I have faith that there is a God, that there is a Savior. And I know that when I put all my thoughts, my words, my actions, all of my dealings first and foremost with Him and with them, it's amazing how everything else falls in line. It's not complicated. We have a tendency as human beings to complicate things in a dramatic fashion. We look for drama. We look for complications. Therefore, we have problems to solve. I would tell you, when you have faith, and a faith in a God, a loving Heavenly Father, to me, I'm getting real here with you, Casey. There's a reason you're doing it, and you're doing it with others.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with your brothers, you're doing it with your sisters, you're doing it, we're all doing it together, and we're all trying to figure it out together. And when we understand this, we start taking on other people's burdens, their problems, their struggles in a way where we want to love on them in a greater capacity.
Yeah.
We want to serve them in a greater way. So therefore we become closer to them.
Yeah.
And in return, which is such a beautiful thing, we become closer to that loving God and become more like Him. He wants us to succeed. And to me, I have faith and a knowledge that I know that He's aware of me. I know He's aware of you.
You've experienced it.
I experience it every single day.
Yeah.
And for that, I'll be forever grateful. And I can't wait to experience it even more in a way that.
I mean, I say this to my wife all the time, and she kind of gets I won't say she gets mad at me, but she's I'm I get more spirituality out of work than I do from church by a long ways. It's what are you talking about? But for me,
I can't say that.
It's about people. It's about serving. It's about growth. And I get a high level of that when I'm working and when I'm building businesses. You know what I mean?
But Casey, that's your personality. That's who you are. You're such a loving soul and you care about people.
But I don't know too many things that give you that platform like business.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're in a spot where you've got people that you're a steward.
Yeah.
Like you've got people's lives. They're trusting you. I think about cultures, and I think about like a toxic culture and like the difference in what that does to, like Tom Peters, his quote on management leadership. He's like, a manager can save more lives than a surgeon.
Mm.
You've got Clayton Christensen that's like, management is one of the most noble professions.
Wow.
And it's because you have people that give like a big piece of their life, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And that can either be an environment that's inspiring, that is empowering, that you're like, that the leader believes in them and is helping them, or the opposite.
Yeah.
All of us have been in those that you've been around a leader that's more authoritative, dictatorial, and like that's a really hard environment.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? And so I think that for me is like where I feel it. And you obviously, like, you've got different roles, with religion and church where you get to probably serve at a higher level and get, that fulfillment. But I always am fascinated when I see people that are successful on how that fits. You know what I mean? Like where that fits in it. Is it something that's all encompassing, or is it something that's supplemental? And it feels like for you, it's just part of it. It's just like,
I don't know if this kind of goes in line with what you're saying. There's no separation from business, family, life, church, whatever responsibilities. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why you talk about faith. Just bring faith into all of that.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing when you can do that. I think there's a more pure enjoyment in what you can do and satisfaction at a deeper level.
Yeah. Which leaders changed your life the most? When you go back and you say, hey, this person believed in me more than I believed in myself, or was at a crossroads? Like who were they and what did they do?
Yeah. I talked about my dad early on. So grateful for him. Always believing in me. And, in a way where.
And could you feel that from like day one? Like you always knew that he believed in you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like there was no doubt about that. There was no doubt. He always trusted me, believed in me, and gave me that confidence. And, I had a church leader, a scout leader. His name was Dave German. I'll forever be grateful for him. I got to go search him out. He created this belief in who I am and what I can achieve, this adventurer side of me. I love Dave German. And I'm forever grateful for him.
You were how old?
I was 12 years old, 13 years old. I'll never forget him. It was just
a pivotal time.
Oh, he was one of the best.
But like talking about it before, it was probably a hard time.
Yeah.
Like financially and a lot of those
difficult.
things.
It was right when we were going through all of it.
Yeah.
And then later on, my first job that I got painting houses was with Richard Stewart, another church leader. And still to this day, I was just with them, talking with them last week, 2 weeks ago. And pivotal moment in my life, 16, 17-year-old young man trying to decide, okay, next stage of my life. That man is a rock star. A, he looks the exact same as he did 30 years ago. But B, even a year and a half ago, the way that he approached my son and how he was mentoring my son when he was going through a difficult time, without me even asking, he just knew, I got this. Put me in, coach, and wrapping his arm around my boy, almost 30 years after he did the same thing to me. But there's these individuals in my life that I'm so grateful for that I hope I can become potentially that person to help and nurture and love, those individuals that need it.
Yeah. What inspires you when you think about like what lights you up when you're sitting there dreaming? What are you dreaming about?
I think maximizing people's potential. I love it. When I see people and they have no idea what their potential is, I get a high off that. I get a high maximizing their potential, but also maximizing a situation where people, either the situation or a business, someone says can't be maximized, or B, an individual can't be maximized, but you see the potential. Oh, you see their strengths. You see their raw strengths. They don't see it. Give them a little taste of success. Just give them a little taste of it, and it becomes contagious, and they want more of it. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And has it always been that way?
I don't know. I think you just discover it throughout life, over time.
Yeah.
But motivating people and giving them hope in their own lives and joy in a way that you're like, no, you can do this. I love inspiring in that way.
Yo,
I love it.
what are you the most proud of?
The first answer is, my 7 children and my beautiful wife. My dad, when I asked my wife to marry me and we're engaged, he asked her probably a half dozen times, are you sure you want to marry this kid? Like, are you sure? I'm like, Dad, like, back off. Like, she may say no, she may get some doubts there. And
But your wife looks like she's like 25, and to say like you guys have 7 kids is insane.
And two grandkids,
no,
right?
It's
they don't
insane.
believe
like,
it.
She looks like she's like 30.
Oh, you're awesome. But it's been that way since we've been married. And but family, that family unit.
That's what you're the most proud of.
There's nothing I would ever trade. And we traveled this week together. We were on a little trip together, and I couldn't wait to get back home.
You were fired up.
When I got home, 1 a.m. last night, and I'm lying in bed, and I'm just like, kissed one of my little daughters, good night, and scared her, woke her up. And then my son's laying there in his bed, and 9.5-year-old boy, my youngest. And I'm just like, you know what?
This is the good stuff.
I was so grateful.
Yeah.
Of course, then that's when you get on your knees and you're just so grateful.
Yeah.
That like nothing can substitute.
I feel that more now than any other time in my life.
Why do you think?
I don't know. Maybe I'm open to it, but it's almost like too much. It brings me to tears when I just think about the goodness and just like how much abundance that we experience. And for me, it always goes back to family. You know what I mean? You look at those kids and you're just like, man, how do I have it this good? My wife, she's up last night. It's 1 a.m. She's taken off today to go to a cheer comp. So we're just hanging out and talking and catching up. And
when you got home last night?
When I got home. Yeah, wow. It was late. It's 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And she's like an early to bed.
That's my wife.
And I'm like, that was like the coolest thing. That was completely for me. That wasn't for her. She just knew I wanted to see her and like stayed up. Wow. And I'm like, that's so rad. And I'm sitting there praying. I'm just like, how good do I have it? Like, thank you. How good is this? And so I hear that and I can just resonate with it. And I think that spirit of abundance and gratitude, if you can like operate in that state, in that emotional state, good stuff just happens. Like when you show up, because it's just as easy. The problems are always there.
Yeah.
And you can find them and you can identify them and everything that's wrong. But there's also like everything that's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And choosing the good and choosing to just spend time, being grateful. I think it just,
You say problems. Can I say something real quick? Yeah. I said a comment earlier about, hiring out for your problems. Like, not with your kids, not with your family.
You can't outsource it.
There's not an outsourcing of problems.
Yeah.
Now, there's assistance, and there are families who need that for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We talked about this that first night together. But I would tell you, when it comes to that, what's most important to you
just can't be efficient.
No, you go solve those problems with those kids.
Yeah.
And that family. And there are problems you cannot outsource. And those are definitely the top of those problems. And I don't know, battling those problems out with your kids, with your family, with your spouse.
Yeah.
That's where you grow together. That's where you become together.
That's where we've grown the most.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about it over the trip. You talk about your kids and they're so unique.
Right.
And they're on their own journey, and you and your spouse are on your own journey.
Yeah.
I worked with so many people, like 100,000 people came through that door-to-door program at some point.
Wow.
And so you just see the entire spectrum of life. You see divorce, and you see infidelity, and you see great marriages, and you see kind of the whole spectrum. Be just like, when I think about my life today and even my marriage, and I'm like, we're different people. We're the same people. We're way different. And you can grow different directions, or you can grow together. You know what I mean? And that growing together is a choice. But the solving problems is where you really grow together or grow apart. One of the two. You know what I mean? And how you address it.
Totally. And with that, I don't know, this thought just came to my mind when you're saying that, Casey, because I think so many problems can be avoided if you can see the bigger picture and you can see the vision of where you want to go and who you want to become and what you want to create. In this case, with your spouse, with your family. And you talk about the infidelity and not being loyal and decisions that are being made, they ultimately create problems for you and because of decisions that you made. But guess what? If you can just see and visualize so much more and practice that vision and practice the long term and be futuristic in that big picture, it's amazing how many problems can be avoided because then you start making decisions based upon where you want to go, not where you're at today. And that, my friends, will help avoid so many of the problems that exist out there. Not to say you're gonna eliminate problems by all means. You will never. You make way
different choices though when you're playing the long. And you see this in business all the time.
Exactly.
I mean, you invested in a million different businesses. Like when you see people make short-term decisions, and I've been a part of businesses that we made short-term decisions. Oh, we're going to sell in 2 years. We got to do this.
Be quick and make these. Yep.
And it just. They're the wrong decisions.
Exactly.
Like when you build for the long term, you invest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the same with your health. It's the same with your education. It's the same with your family. It's like same with your faith. It's like when you're looking long, you play the long game and you invest along the way. Where if it's short term, you cut corners. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work in business, and it doesn't work with your health, and it doesn't work in your marriage for sure. You know.
No, sir.
Give me kind of if you were to sum up the built story and kind of what you want to be known for when it's all said and done. We're talking about the long game. When it's all said and done, what impact do you want built to make on the world?
I'll tell you what I don't want it to be first is I don't want to be known as the built guy. I don't want to be defined. And on my gravestone, I don't want to be known as the built guy. I know for me, and I'm going to change your question a little bit, so bear with me.
I'm here.
I'm glad you're going to stick around for this at least, but
I'm ready.
I don't want a business. I don't want my successes. I don't want money. I don't want cars, houses. I don't want experiences as far as trips. And I don't post anything online, but if I were to post anything, I don't want that to define who I am. As an individual, I want to be defined by someone who's loving, who's caring. They know that I'm there for them every waking moment. They know that I believe in a God, that I believe in a Savior. They know that I believe in something much higher and much more important and much more perfect and very perfect than I will ever be here on this life. I want to be known in a way, and I want to be able to be part of situations as far as businesses that help add to that.
Yeah.
And I want to create environments, cultures, people, teams that they can go on and build upon that and be 10x, 100x greater than I ever could have been. And in a way where I created a platform because Built helped create that platform that allowed them to become who they ought to become. I want a business, and I want businesses that create those platforms that help individuals create the right platforms, right foundations, become the very best men and the very best women that they can become. That, my friends, is a grand slam. And that's what I want.
Yeah.
So,
one, I love it. And two, you're doing it and have done it. And like for all of us, we're cheering for you.
Oh, you're awesome.
Because you're in the arena and it's really hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like, even if you have the vision.
What kind of arena would you say?
It's like Toro?
Gladiator. Do I have like a little red kit?
I think this
Gladiator.
is like Gladiator.
Okay, that arena, it is pretty intense.
No, it's intense. Like that world, there's just stuff out there to kill you around every corner.
Yeah.
And you're trying to go build this safe environment for the people you work with in an unsafe world. Yeah. And it's this like beautiful balance
of
let's go push it and let's go stretch these resources to their limit. But also like, let's take calculated risks. And so I got a couple questions and we'll finish up.
Okay.
What financial advice is the most relevant that you've ever received? And if you were giving financial advice to somebody, what's kind of the gold?
Man, you know what? Bob Gay years ago, who's a phenomenal leader and was at Bain Capital. And if you know Huntsman Gay here locally,
yeah.
And he had a couple books that are not published, but for his family, and I got my hands on them, and I'm forever grateful for him. I love Bob Gay, and he's one of my heroes. And one of the things he said to me once was he talked about his own father. And here he was, Howard Hughes's right-hand man back in the day. And he shared a story about his dad and Howard and these situations he was in. And Howard gave his dad some advice, and he told his dad, you need to protect the base. And he talked about his base of what he was trying to do more philanthropic things. And Bob looks at me and goes, Nick, protect the base. This is when we were going to sell our first business back in 2010. And I'm like, what's the base? What does he mean? I thought it was the business. I got to protect the business. So for about 30 days, I was just sitting there, just contemplating, struggling. I thought, it's the business. And I realized, no, it's the money in the business, and you got to go sell the business so you can do much more and do good with this. And so that protecting the base mindset for 14 years now, and that saying, I always think, how am I going to protect the base? So when I make an investment in something, protect the base. Don't get emotional about how much am I going to make off this deal. If I'm gonna make an investment, it's like, I got to make sure I'm going to just protect my principal, protect the base,
guard the downside.
Exactly. Now, also, I can't be willy-nilly and I can't be frivolous with the base that I have. So I've got to be smart, because what I gained over and what I was blessed with over the last 20 plus years of my career, it can be lost in 20 seconds. It can be gone. And so I would say, first and foremost, protect the base. What is your base, wherever you're at whatever stage, and go protect it. And then you go build off that base and do not take it for granted whatsoever.
So that's on financial. What professional advice would you give?
Professional, always be a learner. Learn. Never stop learning. I think, school as a whole, it's a broken system as far as our educational system. I think we get degrees, but in reality, we need to learn, and we need to be learners. And I would tell you, never stop learning. Always start getting all the knowledge you can possibly get, and do as much as you possibly can professionally to get that knowledge. And I would say, if you're building a career, you're working for someone, work yourself out of that position. And never be scared to work yourself out of that position.
It's interesting, because there's so much fear to go do that. You know what I mean? You're comfortable and you're happy. And
when you want to work yourself into the position, I would say do just the opposite. Work yourself out of the position. So what are you going to do? Like you guys here back behind the screen and everything else, like work yourself out of this position ASAP. Everyone. And if you do that, that means you're constantly learning and you're growing. And what are you going to do in return? You're growing the business that you're working for. So therefore, you're moving up to that next level, that next opportunity, but always work yourself out of every position that you're in.
I love it. I appreciate you coming.
It's good to see
you. Can't wait to go do this again and continue to follow the Built story. I appreciate you coming in and hanging.
Thanks, man. It's so good to be here.
We'll see you, brother.
Thanks, Seba. All right, man.